So my name's Greg Gatto, first off, I want to thank the ASBMB for the opportunity to speak, and thank all of you for coming. You should have this perspective. It's a really great crowd. Also, I want to thank the first three speakers who laid out a lot of points that, even though I'm going to talk a little bit about industry positions, the principles are still the same. And many of the nuggets of wisdom and advice you'll get from the rest of us, I think, are the same that you'll get from anybody else. I did my undergraduate degree in chemistry at Princeton, and decided I was working in an organic chemistry lab, and we were making molecules, and some of the best molecules, not the ones I made, but the best molecules got a drug company would come and take those molecules off and then do something mysterious with them. We had this collaboration with this pharmaceutical company, which I knew very little about other than the molecules went in a glass vial and they went away. And it became pretty clear over time that was something that fascinated me. Like, what happened to that glass vial when it went away? And that's when I started to develop this interest in not only the basic science of what we were making, but why, and what was it being used for, and how does it work? And I spent a lot of time thinking long and hard about it, and I decided that I wanted to pursue an MD PhD program. And I was telling people in the various professors, because as I'm sure you know, as you start to become junior, senior, people start nagging you about what you want to be when you grow up, and what are you going to do next, and what's next on your plate. And so I said I was going to go into an MD PhD program, and my advisor, whom I respect a great deal, was initially kind of cautious about this. It was clearly not a typical path for somebody in his lab, an undergraduate in his lab. But I also had other people in the department, other professors, who would literally corner me in the hallway and tell me what a big mistake I was making with my life, that I wasn't going to be getting a real PhD. And so naturally I went to the MD PhD program. And I did that at Johns Hopkins, where I started. So the way the MD PhD program works at Hopkins and a lot of other institutions, it may be different for different institutions, but you do your first 2 years of medical school, which is mostly your classwork, and then you go off and you do your PhD. And then when you're done, you go back and you finish the rest of your medical school, which is mostly work on the wards, working with patients and running around and being told what to do, from 6 in the morning till 11 at night. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of work. Then when I got to my PhD, though, that's when really things really took off. I worked for Jeremy Berg, who was a professor of biophysics and biophysical chemistry at the time. He is a past president of the ASBMB. He's actually the reason why I got involved in ASBMB. And is now he's had a lot of jobs since. He's now the editor-in-chief of science and an overall good guy. And so I learned a lot working for Jeremy, and I really discovered how much I love doing research and I love being in the lab. And so much so that as I was going through the PhD part of my process, I realized that this is what I wanted to do, and I wanted to do research. But unfortunately, in order to complete my MD PhD program, I had to go back to medical school. And so I went back to medical school, and this was a very awkward time because I had lined up my postdoc position. I had interviewed and set it up before I went back to medical school. So I went back to medical school knowing already what I was going to do next. And this was weird. So I went, and because much like when you're an undergraduate and you're in your junior or senior, when you get to your last couple of years of medical school, the very next question you get is, what are you going to do next? What are you going to match in? What are you going to apply for? What fellowships are you going to get? And I didn't have a good answer for any of that. I just had, I'm going to go do an academic postdoctoral position, which I can assure you, if you haven't been in medical school, is not a very popular answer. And so I had people cornering me in the hallway, literally telling me what a big mistake I was making with my life, and that I shouldn't do that, and I should do a residency, and I shouldn't go into academic postdoc. So naturally, I went and got my academic postdoc. And I did that with Chris Walsh, who's since retired over at Harvard Medical School, and another fantastic human being and a great training program. And things started to change working for Chris, because Chris had many, many postdocs in his lab. And it was about a 50-50 split. 50 went off to do academic positions and tenure track positions, and about 50% went off to industry. So now I didn't feel like I was, as somebody who started to develop an interest in industry, it didn't feel like such a heretical position to go into industry. So before I continue, I wanted to tell you why I've told you those two stories about people cornering the hallway telling me what a mistake I'm making with my life. And that is that one thing I've learned over the years is that when people, in an individual in a position who's senior, tells you what you should do or gives you advice about what career you should take, they're telling you from their own personal biases and experiences. They're not wrong, but they're telling you based on what their prevailing experiences have been. So it's important for you, it's incumbent upon you to put up a filter before everybody that speaks to you and try and think about where they're coming from and why they're telling you what they're telling you. What's the best way to combat that? Well, there's two things you can do to kind of make sure you're getting the real story, if you will. The first is to get advice from a lot of different people. Talk to people with different backgrounds, talk to people with different experiences. Hopefully today you'll get a chance to do that today. Because remember, you're going to hear a lot from people sitting in panels and up at podiums, and we all have the same biases that all those professors had with me. Okay? And the other thing you can do, and this is to echo what Dr. Barber said and what others have said, get mentors you trust. Mentors who you're confident care about you as a person and not just you as an outgrowth of them. And I think that's really, really important. During my postdoc, I decided I was very interested in pursuing a career in industry. I wasn't all that enamored with the idea of writing grants all the time, although I really enjoyed teaching, although I found myself teaching even though I'm in industry now. But I got a position at GlaxoSmithKline out of my postdoc, where I've been ever since. I've been there a little over 10 years now. And the interesting thing about industry is unless you're lucky enough to work in an environment, Mark mentioned this, where there's experience dealing with industry, it's hard to find out what it's really like. And so I hope maybe over the course of today with discussions over the panel and with lunches and whatnot, that we can help kind of give you a sense of what it's like to work in industry. Because there aren't that many industry members that teach at your institutions. But I will tell you that it's a very rewarding experience. Because we tend to publish in a different way than academic institutions do, there are a lot of unsung heroes in industry, people that you don't necessarily know or you read about every day in Science, Cell, or Nature, who are doing really some amazing work. And it's a big team effort, and that's the real key, I think, to working in industry, is being able to work in a team. You're surrounded by people who know way more than you do, and that's a good thing. And so your goal is to kind of synthesize that and bring it all together and bring your contributions to the table. No one person discovers a drug. It really does take a lot of work and a lot of people and a lot of time. And it's a really rewarding experience, and so I've learned a great deal doing it. I still haven't discovered a drug yet, but I'm working on it. We'll see. We'll get there. But that's really all I have to say, and I look forward to talking to many of you over the course of the day. And please, if I don't get a chance to answer your questions during the day and you see me, I'll be roaming. I'll be here till Wednesday. Just stop me and let's talk. So thanks.